Beruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem together on Daf Mem Tes Amud Aleph, starting with Mem Ches Amud Beis, 4 lines from the bottom. We learned several times before that when it comes to many houses that share one chutzner, the Chachamim prohibited one to carry an object from the bayis to the chutzner and vice versa, unless an Erev Chatzeros is made. An Erev Chatzeros consists of taking a loaf of bread from each bayis and placing into one of the houses and joining them to be one residency. If you have 2 parallel Chatzeros, each one is next to the other, where one is open to the other one and each one has also an entrance to the Rishus HaRabim. So if one were to be making an Erev Chatzeros by itself, so again, you can carry from the bayis to the Chatzer and vice versa. But you would not be able to carry from one chutzner to the other chutzner. However, if they make an Erev Chatzeros between the 2 Chatzeros, by placing the loaves of bread into one of the Chatzeros and joining them, then you can also carry from the bayis to either chutzner. Our Mishnah talks about a case where you have 3 Chatzeros that are adjacent to one another. Each one opens up to the other one. And you also have an entrance to the Rishus HaRabim. Here, Rabbi Shimon teaches us in the Mishnah that when an Erev Chatzeros was made between the outer Chatzeros and the middle Chatzer, so he says, He muteres imahen, veheim muteros imo. The middle one is muter with them, and they are muter with it. Ushtayim chachitzonos asur zu mizu. But the outer Chatzeros would be prohibited one to the other. Says the Gemara, Omar Rav Yehud, Omar Rav, Zu Div Rabbi Shimon. These are the words of Rabbi Shimon. That means to say that Rabbi Shimon says that you can go ahead and it's permissible to take an object from the outer Chatzeros and bring it into the middle Chatzer, and also from the middle Chatzer to the outer Chatzeros. Aval Chachamim Oimrim, Rishus Achas, Mishtameshes, Lishtei Rishuyos. Aval lo Shtei Rishuyos, Mishamoshes, L'Rishus Achas. The Chachamim argue and say that you can only then take an object from the outer Chatzer to the inner Chatzer, either one of the outer Chatzeros to the inner Chatzer, but not vice versa, because the outer Chatzeros enjoin with one residency to the inner Chatzer, but the inner Chatzer is going to then enjoin 2 different residencies to 2 different Chatzeros, and that's not permissible according to the Chachamim, and therefore you can only carry the object from the outer Chatzer into the middle Chatzer, but not from the middle Chatzer to either outer Chatzeros. Ki amrisa kamei de Shmuel, when this halacha was stated before Shmuel, that indeed Rabbi Shimon said you can go from the outer to the inner and the inner to the outer. Omar li, he said to me, Avzu div Rabbi Shimon. Even the Chachamim's words, according to what Rav said, is really the sheet of Rabbi Shimon. That means that Rabbi Shimon also holds that you can only carry an object from the outer Chatzeros to the inner, to the middle Chatzer, but not vice versa. Again, because the middle one would be enjoining both residencies, and that's not going to be valid. Aval Chachamim oimrim shloishtun asuros, and the Chachamim argue on Rishon and they say you cannot carry whatsoever, not even from the outer Chatzeros to the inner, the middle Chatzer. Says the Gemara on top of Mem Tes Amud Aleph, the second line, Tanya Kavosei de Rav Yehuda Aliba de Shmuel. We have a brisa that supports the version of Shmuel. Rabbi Shimon says, what is this compared to? That which is stated that we have 3 people who are standing next to each other. The middle person is within 6 amos of both ends. That means he's in the middle. And then you have within 6 amos another person on one side and 6 amos another person on the other side. So each one has their own restrictive Dalet Amos, but since they share with the middle person the 2 Amos, so therefore you can take an object, a food, and eat it from one of the outer ones into the inner ones, and they can go ahead and the outer one and the inner one can go ahead and partake in the food together, and so too the one in the outer one on the other side can partake it together with the middle one, but the two outer ones cannot partake with each other. That's what the Mishnah said. On that, Rabbi Shimon says, this is similar to a case where you have three chatzeros, our case, that are next to each other, and each one is opened up to the other one, and each one is opened up to the Rishus HaRabim. Ervu shtayim im hamtzois, if the two outer ones, the two outer chatzeros, made an eruv with the middle chatzer, zu mevia mitoich beisa ve'oicheles, v'zu mevia mitoich beisa ve'oicheles. From the outer chatzer, you can go ahead and bring food into the middle chatzer and eat, or from the other outer chatzer, you can bring to the middle chatzer and eat. Zu mechazeret moisora letoich beisa, v'zu mechazeres moisora letoich beisa. And if you have extra food, you can bring it back out to the outer chatzer. Aval chachamim oimrim shloishton asuros. Whereas the chachamim say all three chatzeros are also, you cannot bring from the outer to the inner. What we see from here, from this brisa, is that you can only bring from the outer chatzeros to the middle chatzer, but you cannot bring originally from the middle to the outer. Only if it's left over can you go bring back to the outer, but you cannot bring from the middle to the either outer chatzer, just like Shmuel's version. Ve'oz da Shmuel l'taimei, and Shmuel goes according to his reasoning. The Omar Shmuel chatzer shebein shnei mevuos. If you have a chatzer that is in between two mevuos, it's opened up to a mavui on one side and to a different mavui on the other side. Erva im shneim, asura im shneim. Here Shmuel tells us this yisoid, that if it makes an eruv with both mevuos, then it's trying to have a residency for two different residents, and therefore on one mavui and the other mavui, they're both going to be prohibited, because you can't make a valid eruv that way. Shmuel goes on to say, Lo irva im shneim, oiseres al shneim. If it did not, the middle chatzer, make an eruv with either one of the mevuos, then all of the chatzeros in both mevuos will be prohibited then from going from one to the other with an object. Haisa be'echad regila or be'echad and regila. Shmuel further qualifies and says, if you have one of the mevuos to be that it normally is traveled through, while the other one is not regila, zesh regila boy oser, v'zeshena regila boy muter. Then only the one that is regila boy, that will be prohibited. Whereas the other one, that is not rogil boy, that will still be mutter. Omar Rabbi Barav Huna. He further qualifies, Irva im she'ena regila boy. If it makes an eruv with the one that is normally traveled through, with the mavui that's normally traveled through, then hutar regila atzma. Then it will matir the one that is rogil on its own. In other words, it's independent from the other mavui, and therefore the middle chatzer is going to be together with the rogil boy. V'omar Rabbi Barav Huna. Shmuel further qualification in the name of Shmuel, im eruv rogil la'atzmoi. If the mavui makes a eruv, the mavui that's rogil makes an eruv on its own, Vizu she'ena rogila boy lo eruv, and the one that is not rogil does not make an eruv on its own. Vihila atzma lo irva, and the middle chatzer between them did also not make an eruv. So you only have the one that's rogil boy, the mavui that made its own chatzer. Doichin oiso eitzel she'ena regila boy. We push the chatzer that is in the middle to be with the one that's not rogil boy. And that's the only one that's prohibited. But the one that is rogil boy, that mavui, will be then permissible for the chatzeros to then carry within that mavui. Ukigon zeh, koifin al midas stoim. We force against midas stoim. That said, the midah of stom said, I don't want to benefit you if I'm not going to benefit. So too over here, we tell the people who are not rogil boy, you cannot go ahead and travel and walk into the one that's rogil boy. You have to stay independent throughout the entire Shabbos, so that the one that is rogil boy is independent as well, and then can be used. Says the Gemara Vayter, Omar of Yehuda Mar Shmuel. Another statement name of Shmuel. Hamakbid al eruvoi ein eruvoi eruv. One who is makbid that the eruv should not be eaten. That means that the loaf of bread that he puts should not be eaten. Then it's not a good eruv, Shmuel says. Because mashmoi, eruv shmoi. What is its name after all? The name is eruv, enjoining. And the lashon of Eruv also comes from Orev. There's a sweetness, there's a connection. In other words, if you're going to then be makbid that the other people should not eat from your bread, then you're not really being connected. And therefore it then goes against the whole concept of Eruv. Rabbi Chanina Omar Eruva Eruv. He said it is a valid Eruv. Vardina. But we say that he's like the people of Vardina who are stingy. But the Eruv is valid. Omar Rav Yehuda Mar Shmuel, another statement that they said in the name of Shmuel, Hachelek es Eruvoi Eino Eruv. One who takes the Eruv and is machalik the Eruv into another Kli is not a valid Eruv. Kiman, ki Beis Shammai. Who does this go like Beis Shammai? The Tanya Chamisha shegavu es Eruvin. There were 5 houses that shared the same chotzer, and they then went and they gathered the Eruv from each bayis, v'nasnu b'shnei kelim, and they put into 2 different kelim. Beis Shammai oimrim ein ze Eruv. Beis Shammai says it's not a good Eruv. Ubeis Hillel oimrim harei ze Eruv. Whereas Beis Hillel says it's a good Eruv. So you're saying that Shmuel goes like Beis Shammai. However, harei, the opinion is like Beis Hillel, and you're saying that it's not a good Eruv like Beis Shammai. Answers the Gemara, no, afilu teim Beis Hillel. That Shmuel can say even like Beis Hillel, because why? Ad kan lo k'omrei Beis Hillel hasam ela demalyan lemana va'ayitar. Beis Hillel only said that din over there, that it's a good Eruv, when you go ahead and you have extra that doesn't fit into the Kli, then you can put it and mechalik into another Kli. Aval heicha de palge miflag loy. But if you're going to then purposely, you're going to take the Eruv and separate to 2 different Kalim, then even Beis Hillel will say it's not going to be a valid Eruv, and that's what Shmuel was saying. Ask the Gemara, V'tarti lamali. What do we need both statements of Shmuel? Statement number 1, that a person who's makbid on the Eruv, that it shouldn't be eaten, is not a good Eruv. And number 2, that one who's mechalek in Eruv, that means he deliberately then puts in 2 different kelim, it's not a good Eruv. L'chara, they're both the same principle. They're both the same principle that the owner is not wanting to enjoin entirely with the other people, making one Eruv. So why did he need to make both statements? Tzrichi, says the Gemara, you need to make both. Why? Because the ashma'in hasam mishum de kapid. If he only said the statement that the person who's makbid is not a good Eruv, then I would say that's not a good Eruv. But over here, in regards to being mechalik between 2 different kelim, that's not going to be a stira to this concept. We don't see over here that a person is going to then care whether one ate or didn't eat. We'll just see that he's then mechalik between 1 and 2 kelim. Doesn't mean that it's going to be necessarily a stira to the Eruv. But if we only taught this case then, that he's mechalek into 2 different kelim deliberately, and that's invalid. That's mishum de palge mifli, because he actively separated the 2. Aval hasam emulo, but over there in the case where you say that he's makbid, maybe he would not say it's a invalid eruv. Tzricha, and therefore Shmuel need to make both statements to say that aleph, it's invalid if a person is makbid, that it be eaten. And number 2, he says it's invalid if a person deliberately places the Eruv into 2 different kelim. Omar le Rabbi Abba le Rabbi Yehuda b'mei ma'atzarto debei Rabbi Zakai. Rabbi Abba said to Rabbi Yehuda in the winery of the house of Rabbi Zakai, Umi Omar Shmuel ha'chaylik es Eruv ve'ena Eruv. He's challenging and says, did Shmuel really say that one who was mechalik the Eruv into 2 different kelim is not a good Eruv? V'homar Shmuel, behold, Shmuel himself said, Bayish shemenichim boy Eruv. If there's a house that they place the Eruv in, Eino tzarich litenes hapas. The owner of the house doesn't have to place pas because he put the pas into a different kli. So you see that there's 2 different kelim that are used for the Eruv. So how can you say that Shmuel says that one who's mechalik makes an invalid Eruv? My time mishum the Omar Kivan the monach besalik kiman the monach halchadami. Is it not that we're talking about in this case that the one whose house it is put into does not need to put an Eruv because he himself already has his loaf of bread in a different basket? whereby it's a separate kli, hachanami. So to over here, given the manach besala, kiman the manach hachadami. So to over here, that if you would put it into a separate kli, it would not make the eruv invalid. So again, how can you say that Shmuel holds one is mechalek the eruv in two different kelim makes the eruv invalid? Here we see that a person who they place the eruv in his house, seemingly the reason why he doesn't have to put his pas in the basket is because he already put pas in a different basket, where you see two different baskets, two different kelim are used. Omalei, he answered it, no, hasam, there in the case where they placed it in his house, the reason why he doesn't have to then place a loaf of bread is because ain't pas, even though he doesn't have pas, he doesn't have to put pas. Not because he has pas in a different basket. My taimo, the kulu hacha dairi, the whole concept of eruv, why everybody takes a loaf of bread and puts it into a house, is that they should enjoin the residence. But the person whose house it's put into, he's already the one who's enjoined with. It's his residence. So therefore he doesn't have to place a loaf of bread.